So in this video, we're going to be going over all my most overpowered and just crazy strong builds, which is definitely where Outriders shines because it lets you do some pretty ridiculous things. I've maxed out all of my characters, unlocked every perk and tested basically every combination to find the best of the best, and some of these are about abilities and not even using weapons, some are about doing the highest weapon damage in the game, and others are about unlimited abilities that never run out. And the best part is that these are perfect starting points for when the full game launches, because of course everything carries over, so these builds are only going to get stronger when more stuff is unlocked. Once again, want to give a special thanks to Square Enix for sponsoring this video. As you'll see, I've clearly been playing this game a lot, and it's cool to get sponsored by a game you actually enjoy. I wouldn't do it otherwise, but a lot of you guys seem to be also enjoying Outriders as well. And if you haven't already played the free demo, I have a link at the top of the description where you can go check it out. But with that being said, make sure you like the video for the YouTube algorithm, and let's get into it. So let's begin with probably the most insane of all the builds, because this one is just super unique and it's kind of unlike anything I've ever seen in shooter games. This is the Devastator class, and I'd say this is probably my favorite at the moment, especially for farming, and I'm probably going to start this at launch. But this is a ridiculous character. Imagine walking into a group of enemies, pressing one button and everything dies. That is what this build lets you do. You just sit back and watch everything drop dead and your loot comes out. As simple as that. Starting with the helmet, we've got the strongest first perk, and this means the enemy with the most health takes 50% more damage. This is actually kind of hilarious because it almost is like exactly how you would want it to be designed. The tankiest, most damage dealing enemies are going to die first, basically. So not only is it good for pretty much any scenario where you'd want to kill the most tanky enemy first, it's also especially good for farming because obviously the enemies with the most health also drop the best loot. So you want to kill them first and leave the grunts around. This one is just perfect, and it's going to prioritize the tanky enemies and make sure it kills them in the right order, which is just ideal. The next one is the Blood Primer perk on the chest piece, and this means all reflected bullets apply bleed status. This isn't the most crazy of the entire build. This is just kind of an added bonus, really. This one is just nice to make the reflected bullets even stronger and just do crazy damage. Now, the next one on the legs, or the trousers as they're called in this game, is actually probably the most important perk in this entire build and one of the most unique perks I've found in the whole game. This is the Auto Reflect Bullet, and it changes literally how the Reflect Bullets plays completely. So normally when you pop the ability, it's going to soak up all the bullets and then it's going to build up one massive charge, and then when it ends, it's going to shoot all those bullets back at the enemy's faces in one big lump. But this perk changes it, so not only can you actually use your weapons and move around and shoot while it's doing that, it also continuously reflects the bullets. So it doesn't do it all at once, it's constantly reflecting bullets as they come, which is perfect. So you can use your weapons while you do this. You can also pop the Golem ability in the middle of it if you want. It's just completely versatile, whereas normally you just stood there with your arm out, kind of just taking damage until it ends, which is the worst part about it. But this changes everything because you can just constantly and continuously deal damage instead of all at the end. It does also say that you can't manually deactivate it, which again, you wouldn't really want to because it just continuously runs. And it also does negate only 50% of the damage, which honestly, I've never even noticed. It doesn't seem to be a downside at all. It just seems to be all positives with this perk. But like I said, this one changes everything. It changes the whole build and how the reflectivity plays. The next one on the gloves is going to be bullet acceleration, and this increases the damage of the bullets by 25, which is definitely a nice bonus. Again, just makes them even stronger. And then the final perk is on the boots, and this is extra time, which increases the skill's duration by 20%, which is very, very nice. Again, without that trousers perk, you wouldn't actually want this because, again, you're a sitting duck while you're collecting bullets, and lasting longer is probably a bad thing because it's just more time for you to die. It doesn't really make a huge difference, but with that perk allowing you to continue to do damage, the longer it's going, the longer you're doing damage. So it's just a win-win, and this is a really, really good perk for this build. And something else is definitely worth mentioning on the Devastator, it has a really crazy perk, which is health regeneration in the class point tree. And this basically lets you regen your health every second. You get a small percentage, and you can stack this perk up to 3 times. There's 3 of them, so it just ticks up constantly. So you can always get your health back, which is obviously one of the biggest kind of struggles in this game, is trying to get health back. It's deliberately designed so you have to go and kill enemies to get health or do damage, things like that. But on this Devastator, you can just always have full health because it just constantly regenerates, and it's unlike anything else. Now, moving on to the Trickster class. This was the first class I played on and definitely one of my favorites. It's probably the most well-rounded overall. It isn't focused on just one ability and just maxing that out. Pretty much everything it does is very, very strong and just gets even stronger with these builds I'm going to show you. On the helmet, we've got the Twisted Fate perk, and this is going to give you 30% critical damage bonus when the skill is active. So a very, very good buff, of course. Twisted Rounds is the king of DPS, and it is just absolutely melting everything. So getting 30% bonus headshot damage is very nice. On the chest piece, we've got an additional mag, which is also really helpful. This is going to give you 2 magazines of twisted rounds before it triggers the cooldown. And especially when you combine it with a weapon like a machine gun with 80 rounds in it, you can have 2 magazines and it's just almost infinite. So very, very nice to have 2 magazines on this perk. On the legs, we've got the slasher perk, and this is going to let you use your temporal blade twice, so once more time before it triggers the cooldown. And again, same thing, very, very helpful to have 2 of these. This ability is actually very strong. It's one of my favorites in the game. It's got a really wide range and it affects pretty much anything you're looking at in front of you. So I really like this perk in particular, and having 2 of them is obviously much more helpful. Adding on top of that, we've got the gloves with the cut loose perk, and this is going to mean the temporal blade has a cooldown reduced by 20%, which is very nice. Again, for such a powerful ability, you can have this come back much quicker, and it's something you're going to be using quite often, so it's definitely worth having a faster cooldown on that. And the final one on the boots is going to be the weakening zone, which means anyone that steps inside your bubble is going to be inflicted with weakness, which is definitely nice for farming or just anyone that you've got inside there, which tends to be the more powerful enemies. It's always nice to make them even weaker. As far as some other perks, you can also make the bubble even bigger, which is just ridiculous size. You can increase it by 2 meters and another 1, so you can make it 3 meters wider, which makes it this massive dome. I don't think it's the most useful personally. You can definitely have some better options, but it's a cool one to have as a nice option anyway. And there is also the Hunt the Prey ability, which is very cool to have, especially again for mobility. You can just teleport around, you can get out of situations, but at least in this build, it's definitely not the strongest. I don't think strong enough to warrant one of these 3 slots, which all are crazy powerful, but it's a cool skill to have, and hopefully it gets even more powerful in the end game with more perks that just make it do more damage and things like that. Now, the next build we're going to look at is on the Technomancer, and this one again is very unique. It might be the best for overall gameplay, especially if you're accurate, and depending on what weapons you have. It took me a while to find a good build for this one until I got one specific perk, which once again changes everything. And this is going to be based around having pretty much unlimited blighted rounds. So it's similar to the Trickster, but this one can do something crazy the Trickster cannot, which changes a lot about this build. So for the helmet, we're going to go with more traps, which gives you 1 extra mine, which is definitely one of the stronger abilities. Does quite a bit of damage, so having 2 of them is definitely very nice. On the chest piece, we've got no pain, no gain. And this is going to mean that 40% of your damage that you deal with blighted rounds when it finishes, when the perk ends and you run out, is going to be turned into healing for you and spread equally among your teammates if you have them. So obviously if it's just you, it's all going to go to you, but it'll be divided equally among your teammates, which is definitely nice to have. And the Techno does feel quite weak overall. It's very hard to get a lot of health back on this guy, so it's nice to have a perk that gives you a bit more health back when the blighted round ends, which of course you're going to be using quite a lot. On the trousers, I've got another spare mag for blighted rounds. It's going to give you 2 magazines before it cools down, which is again very helpful. You're going to be using this perk a lot, so having 2 of the magazines is going to be essential for this build. And now the gloves is where this really comes alive. This is where the huge difference is made. It's called Trick Up the Sleeve. And what this does is going to make it so that during blighted rounds, when you kill any enemy, you're going to get 30% of your magazine size automatically refunded. So this is where the infinite rounds come in on most weapons, especially most enemies you're killing as well. If you just tap fire and just make sure you're accurate, especially with this fully auto shotgun that I've got, you can just tap fire and actually takes way less bullets to kill an enemy than you'll get refunded because of this perk. So you'll end up getting a surplus and pretty much fill your magazine, and you can have infinite rounds. As long as you're accurate, not wasting too many shots, you can just keep tap firing and watch the magazine just fill up and eventually get full, because again, you're taking less bullets to kill the enemies than you're getting refunded. So unlike the Trickster, which eventually runs out of those 2 magazines, this you can keep going forever as long as you're accurate. And now the final perk on the boots is the critical analysis. This is the icing on the cake, and it's going to make your blighted rounds do 30% more crit damage, which of course is very helpful. With this build, you're trying to get headshots as much as possible, and this is going to be perfect for the infinite rounds build, because you can just keep getting those headshots in no bullets at all and then get refunded even more than you used. So you can see I've basically spec'd almost all into blighted rounds. The turret and the mines are kind of cool. They do a little bit of damage. It's nice to freeze them, but overall I didn't find them as strong as just the pure DPS you can get with blighted rounds. So again, hopefully more perks will make them more powerful, but for this one I definitely go all out on the blighted rounds. Now, what makes this build even crazier is that on this character I actually got really lucky, and I got a legendary that is a perk that ties so well into this. This is the Amber Vault, and this means that any crit shots do not consume ammo, full stop. So continuing with the infinite theme, as long as you're accurate, you can just keep getting headshots and never lose any bullets. And then of course, as you get kills, they're going to get added on top. So this one already has a massive mag. This is perfect for an infinite blighted rounds build. And yeah, I definitely got lucky on this one that I happened to get it on this character. Now, I can already see your comments of why I left out the Pyromancer class, and this is definitely the least popular in the demo, I'd say overall. It just isn't massively over the top powerful compared to the other characters with what's available in this demo, but it is worth noting that's going to change at launch because the developers actually think this might be the strongest build in the game overall. The Pyromancer is definitely not to be slept on. Do leave a comment down below with your favorite build so far. I'd like to see what you guys have been using, anything that I might have missed or anything that you think is really strong. But of course, if you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always much appreciated. And if you haven't played the demo yet, you can check the link at the top of the description to go check it out. But with that being said, I do appreciate you guys for watching the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one.